Wow. What is up, Flick fans, and welcome back to my channel. In honor of the season finale of Euphoria, today I'm going to talk about the show in its entirety, Season 1, for the first time, and I need your comments down below. Did you enjoy the show? Was it what you were anticipating? I want to see all of those things, but first, let's talk about Euphoria. So Euphoria on HBO is a look at life for a group of high school students as they grapple with issues of drugs, sex, and violence. And just so you know, in today's review, I'm going to go into mild details for what the show has been up to the season finale. I don't want to talk about it in depth just yet. We may do that in a separate video, but I am going to hit on some very important plot elements to episodes of the season prior. All right, Euphoria. So I was a bit worried and kind of nervous going into the show because I've heard so many things from so many different people, from you will never want to have children to it does exactly what you don't anticipate it doing, and it's very graphic. It's very adult. This is HBO, so we're used to dealing with those kind of things, whether it's Game of Thrones or Westworld. I started out watching episode 1, 2, and 3 kind of in a row to get on board, try to understand what this show's all about, and let me tell you, I absolutely understood. Now, it did take me a bit to get on board because of the graphic nature of what this show is, because when it says it talks about teenagers and what they go through now, it's not hitting on, relationships and texting and Tinder. Now, all of those things are in there, but they're explored in a very different way from what we've seen before. Now, I'd say the closest thing I've seen to this in the movie space, in the junior high world anyways, is possibly 8th Grade, Bo Burnham's movie from last year. Now, that film, while it was a comedy, and it was a very sweet film and did not go near as deep as this show does, it did start to hit on some things that this show begins to hit on, whether it's older guys hitting on younger girls, or girls discovering themselves and realizing who they are, or just children that have to go through the things that kids actually go through now. Now, I'm 24. I'm not too much older than a lot of the characters in this show, but what they're going through and what I went through when I was growing up, two completely different worlds in a way, because while I had phones and texting and all this stuff, they have so many more things and access to things that I didn't have access to, and this was just a few years back. Euphoria explores all of those things. It takes what adults know about teenagers and it goes deeper. It takes what they don't know about teenagers and it showcases that and kind of gives them, me, an idea of what they have to deal with. And while some of it is like, okay, the relationship thing, I can kind of get behind it, but when you really think about it, grow up, kids. You're going to go through relationships in high school. You're going to fall in love. It's not going to be the person for you. But this show, it takes that and it allows you to see these kids falling in love and realizing that maybe they're not in the best kind of relationship, or they're being raised by people who aren't the best human beings, and seeing a more in-depth look into what kind of relationship it is. And that aspect of the show gave me way more than I was anticipating, and I didn't walk away as I kind of expected to walk away, going, yeah, it's just another show, it's teen schmaltzy, this and that, it's the rom-com feel. There's comedy in it, for sure. It is way less of a comedy than anything else, but there are funny moments, and the characters within the show, some of their dialogue, some of the conversations, you can get on board, and you really gravitate towards them because of the likability, the way that they grow on you, and how every individual episode, and I love when shows do this, they don't just focus on one character. Now, clearly, Rue is the main character of this show because the entire story is narrated from her perspective on things, and it's kind of a look back into what happened at this point in my life. But it doesn't just follow her around for 8 episodes. It follows her around, it starts following other characters around, it follows Lexi around, it follows Kat around, it follows Nate around, it follows all of these characters around, and it feels like all of the integral characters to this storyline, they get their own episode to flesh more out as a character, whether it's the first 5-10 minutes of that episode as Rue is kind of exploring who they are, who they grow up as, and where they are now, and why they're in the position that they're in, or it's an entire chunk of an episode exploring what the heck they're dealing with right now, whether it is a relationship or coming into your own body and realizing who you are and not who other people tell you to be, or maybe dabbling in the wrong things, dabbling in something that a teenager, a kid in high school, should not be dabbling in. Websites, you guys kind of know where I'm going with this, and you know exactly the character that I'm talking about. and it's way more intense than you're probably even thinking right now. If you haven't seen this show and you don't know what I'm talking about, when I say graphic, I mean full nudity, and it shows the kids doing what the kids are doing. Now, clearly, they're not being played by high school age kids. They're older actors and actresses, but it's very intense. And in that nature, it's kind of off-putting. And when I said it took me a bit to get into this show and understand what it was doing, it did take me a bit, because at first I'm like, oh, okay, this is making me very uncomfortable. I watched with my wife. We were both sitting there going, I don't know. But then you start to pay attention to the artistry and the cinematography and the filmmaking, the way that the show looked and the way that it made you feel about all of these characters, not just one in particular, whether you love them or hate them or you want to explore more of them or learn more about them as a character, and you start gravitating towards them, all of those things. These were feelings that I was getting just in the first episode. It's drug addiction. That's kind of the main point of this show starting out, is Rue is going through something that a lot of kids are going through nowadays, and she is addicted to not just one drug, many drugs. She almost died from that. Her little sister Gia found her, and that's something her family has been having to deal with for quite some time. This is a character who is I don't want to deal with anyone right now. She's very to herself and extremely introverted, and that is something that a lot of people are going to relate to. And let's just talk about, is it Zendaya or Zendaya? I'm going to say Zendaya, because that's what I've been saying. Wow. You know, I've always liked her as an actress. Didn't love her in the first Spider-Man movie. I came around in Spider-Man Far From Home, and overall I'm like, yeah, she's good. She just needs the right opportunity. Yeah, this is the right opportunity. This is the best she's ever been. She is not just good, not just great. She's phenomenal in this show. I learned everything I needed to know about her from the script, yes, and from the story, because it's very fleshed out, but from her performance, from her subtlety and her movements to just the way that she handles every situation that she finds herself in. And her relationship with Jules is one of the more fascinating things of the entire show. And another character that just fascinated me, the character of Jules, was great. Hunter Schafer did a wonderful job, and that relationship just carries you through the entire show. And both of those characters dealing with very different things, but things that are going to make you sit back and go, wow, I didn't even know that was something that kids that age had to deal with in today's time, and really for the last couple of years. But it's continued to get worse, and Euphoria is just this exploration of everything. Sex, drugs, violence. I mean, gang members coming in and selling the character of Fez drugs while Rue is just kind of ducking her head and trying to get herself out of that situation. And that scene, multiple scenes like that in the show, but that scene in particular, it had you on the edge of your seat, and it's the intensity from the filmmaking. And like I said, everything about this show, this is the best sense of atmosphere I felt in a show in general all year in quite some time. Whether it's tone or the balance of characters, there's some points where you can have too many things happening on screen at once. You're trying to figure out, okay, do I want to focus on this character, or that character? And that tends to ruin a good show like this, when you have to balance so many things and it doesn't really know how to handle its characters. But this show, it doesn't suffer from that, because the balance is perfection. And a lot of that has to do with the directing, the filmmaking, of course, but the screenplay. The screenplay is great, and the dialogue, it feels extremely natural. And I can see so many different shots from this show in my head right now, shots that stick out from the year of 2019. And the use of color here is brilliant as well. The use of the color blue is something that I'll never forget from this show. And I love the shots where it's just kind of focused on a character's face as there's narration in the background, and you're just kind of feeling what they're feeling in that moment. You're in their headspace, everything is happening, whether they're feeling shaken or you're feeling shaken as an audience member. Those are the moments that I will never forget from this show, and those are the moments that make me look at what this show is doing, and I'm like, yeah, I listen, it takes me a bit to get on board with something like this, because it's extremely off-putting. I couldn't watch something like this with my parents, because it's not that kind of show, but you're fascinated. As much as you want to turn away and you don't want to look at what's happening on screen, and you're scared for certain characters from the situations that they're getting themselves into, not just the older characters, but the younger characters start trying to get into these situations. Rue's younger sister, for example, and Rue's like, listen, I've been through this, and I'm slowly getting away from this, and you're feeling her character detract herself from this situation progressively throughout the show. One, because she found someone that she loves, and two, because she's learning from her mistakes. So the last thing she wants as her mother wants is for her younger sister to get herself in that situation. And the other characters, not just Rue and Jules, whether it's Kat or Maddie or Cassie or Lexi, I mean, all of those storylines are fleshed out. And Nate's storyline. Nate is another character that I want to talk about because, yeah, you know, he really got to me the way he was supposed to in this show. He really pissed me off at points. I'm like, I just can't stand that guy. You see what he's going through and you see what he's struggling with, and you're like, well, I kind of understand the way that he's acting, but he's that one guy in high school I'm just like, I want you to stay as far away from me as possible, because deep down, you're not the best person in the world, and you see that flesh out more and more, even though, once again, every single character, good or bad, they give you an insight into where they come from. They don't just bring them on screen without reason, and it's just another reason that I loved Euphoria the way that I did. Now, there were moments that I think they could have focused on a bit less. A few characters that come in there at times, and they take away from the story that you're focusing on, and some shots that lingered, maybe a bit longer than they needed to. I feel like there was one episode, I believe it was like 4 or 5, great episode, but there were times when I was like, okay, can we just move the story along? It's not hitting me as hard as I think it wants to hit me. And then once again, it is a hard, difficult show to watch. It's not necessarily one I want to go back to and revisit. That doesn't mean it's a bad show. And it's also one that I'm looking forward to seeing what happens next down the line. And in terms of episode 8, the episode that we just got, I was waiting to see if the finale to this season would deliver. And for me, it absolutely did. Enough of a cliffhanger there, but I cannot wait to see where the show goes, and what a wrap-up to certain storylines, guys. Overall, Euphoria, just a great show. It is one of those HBO shows that is worth talking about. Incredible performances by really everyone in the cast. There's not any performance that sticks out as bad, and Zendaya, oh man, she blew me away. She blew me away. I'm gonna go 88% for Euphoria, one of the higher scores I've given all year to any season of television. It's a great show. It's on HBO right now. I encourage you to go check it out and get pumped and primed for what comes next on HBO. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. This was a fun show to talk about. I've been watching along trying to figure out how I was going to approach this review, but even the more that I talked about the show, the more I ended up enjoying it. Thank you guys for watching. More things to come this week. A lot of movies dropping this weekend, so there are going to be a lot of videos on this channel on Friday and Saturday, along with a couple of things on Netflix. I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you very soon.